Week number two of Georgia football is coming up, and it's time to take a look at what's going to happen, at least in our minds, this week with Eric Zier and DJ Shockley. And before we get started, I want to say happy birthday to Eric, who celebrated a birthday this week. Z, I hope you're having a good week.
Having a great week. Listen, the number 50, that's a lot of numbers on there. So
happy birthday, man.
I told my wife, Julie, that no more numbers on the cakes moving forward. It's just happy birthday.
Just one big candle, huh?
That's it.
Can I still give you like 50 licks? Can I do that when I see you?
You can do that. That's I probably deserve that, Shock. I probably deserve it.
The Dogs have Samford coming up this week. It's the home opener. First game at home since winning the national championship. So there should be a lot of energy in the building on Saturday for the Bulldogs and the Samford Bulldogs out of Birmingham, Alabama, in the FCS. Guys, before we take a look at Samford and Georgia, just your final thoughts on Georgia and Oregon and what a performance by the Bulldogs in the season opener.
Yeah, it really was, Shock. I'll jump in. And, I think when you look at that football game, you couldn't have scripted a better way to start the season. Offensively, it was a dominating performance from the opening whistle. I mean, the first 7 times you touch the football, you find your way into the end zone. So Coach Monken pitched nearly a perfect game. And we talked a lot going into the football game about the matchup problems that opposing defenses are going to have against the Dogs. And boy, you saw that on full display. And then defensively, with a lot of young guys stepping up, I think played solid. We still have room to improve on the defensive side of the ball, though. I think when as you watch tape on the game, some small missed assignments, wrong routes to the football, lost contain a couple of times. So some things that you can work on. So we haven't hit our ceiling, not even close to hitting our ceiling as a football team. And when you have a performance like we had against Oregon, knowing that you still have room to improve, if you're a part of the Dog Nation, that's exciting.
Scott, I think Z is spot on with just the way the team came out. Obviously, you look at, like he said, scoring on the first 7 possessions. That's making a statement early. That's putting pressure on your opponent early to show up in week 1, game 1. And I thought Georgia was a more physical team. And that's one thing that, coming to the first game, you never know how a new team is going to respond. And that's kind of how I think Kirby went into this ball game. We got a lot of guys in a lot of different spots, a lot of new faces, a lot of young guys, like Z mentioned. And I thought these guys stepped up to the plate and showed the entire country that Georgia is not going anywhere. And I think that was a conversation coming into this ball game with all the guys that Georgia lost on both sides of the ball, with Georgia still be as dominant or still be as good as people, want them to be. And I think they put that out there that Georgia's not going anywhere. So I love the fact the guys came out and played from, getting the whistle to the end of the ball game, not wanting to even allow Dan Lanning and Oregon to get another touchdown or get a touchdown period in this ball game. I thought that was a fighting grit that you like to see out of this team. And it's going to be fun to watch these Dogs this year, just like we had last year.
As former quarterbacks, I want to get your thoughts on the quarterback play of Georgia, both Stetson Bennett, who had a career high in passing yards, and then Carson Beck, who came in and had a touchdown drive as well.
I'll start. Yeah, I think it's complete control, complete command. Both quarterbacks seem to have all of that. And just being down there on the sideline, you can see just the calmness in Stetson, not just on the sideline, but in game, at the line of scrimmage, in the huddle. You can tell he has complete control of his offense. And then when the ball snapped, he was just as calm, he was just as cool, and just distributing the football. And I think that's the most important, is making the right decisions, but also being accurate with it. Like, there's a lot of opportunities in the ball game to make big plays, and you miss them. And I think one thing that really, I saw the growth in Stetson in this ball game was there were a number of big-time shot plays that go down in this ball game. And I'm sitting there next to Mike Bobo, who's, on staff, and, I'm asking him, what's going to happen next? What's this play? What's going on? And he's like, all right, we got a shot play. We get quarters. This is what's going to happen. And the player come up, and they don't get the look they want. And Stetson are checking down to one of his backs. Like, Kenny McIntosh had 9-10 catches over 100 yards or whatever it was. That's just efficient. That's something that is hard to teach, especially when you want to make the big plays. And I thought he did a great job of that. I thought Carson came in moved the football, made some good throws. There's one or two he wants back, but both of those guys came in and commanded this offense, and it's the reason why Georgia was able to put up 49 points in this game, because those guys were at the helm.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Shock said. I'll kind of take it from a different angle. What I think we saw is how this team benefited from Stetson being the guy all off season. So you go back into years past when he was number 2, 3, 4, 5 on the depth chart before making his way into the starting role. He's not the guy at the helm getting reps with all of the starters on the offensive side of the ball. This year he was. And I think that calmness and that confidence that you saw Stetson carry into the game, I saw that from every member of this Georgia football team. And the way that they elevated their play, because the entire team had a comfort level of being together an entire offseason, knowing this is going to be our quarterback and this is going to be the leader of the team. I think it elevated everybody's play.
This week against Samford, an FCS team that beat a top 10 FCS team in their opener in Kennesaw State. Their quarterback hires had 4 touchdown throws. He was the Southern Conference Offensive Player of the Week. How do you approach this game if you're Georgia? Now, I mean, we know how the coaching staff and within the boundaries of the program, how they're going to approach it. But do some other things seep in your preparation for this game? Because it's not the buildup of the Oregon game. It's not a Power 5 team. Does that stuff creep in, or are you able to completely eliminate that?
I'll jump in here and start, Shock. We talked about this a lot last year, right? Are we going to start to read our press clippings, or are we going to stay locked in and focus and play at elite levels? This year, are we going to continue to be the ones that are hunting, not being hunted? I think that you have to ask that question of this team as well. With this group of guys, are they going to sit back and know that they just had a dominant performance in week 1 against a top 15 team, right? Pushed Oregon all the way out of the rankings with how well they played. Is this team going to be able to stay focused week in and week out and go play at their levels of excellence versus playing, up to or down to whichever or whoever the opponent might be? For me, it's going to be one of the keys to this game. This is a football game that we should win and should win handily. But are we going to play with the same level of excellence and the same discipline that we saw in week 1 that we know we're capable of, and continue to get better week in and week out? Kirby has done, I think just the culture of this program has been one that we go compete at a level that we're bumping up against our wall of excellence constantly. We're not worried about who we're playing, whether it be a big time program or whether it be a team that you should beat pretty easily. This is about how well are we preparing against what excellence is and what excellence looks like for us. This is going to be the first test along those lines for this Georgia team. Can they stay focused when you don't have all of the hype surrounding a football game? I think that answer is going to be yes. I think that Kirby has ingrained that in all of these guys, but that's going to be the question this week.
Z, you're spot on, man. I think the number one thing is what you mentioned. The standard is the standard at Georgia. And I think last year that team kind of held each other to that standard week in and week out, because we had the same conversation about when you're playing team that you're better than, how are you going to play? And one thing, when I talked to Kirby about this after the ball game, I asked him, hey, you got Samford coming up. What's going to be the message to the team? And it's one that I'm sure everybody's heard before, but you're always 1 week away from humility. And you think about, if you go out and you lay an egg this week, it makes last week practically worth nothing. So you got to go out and continue to play to the standard that's expected of you at Georgia. So it might as well be nameless, faceless, logoless team that's out there that they're going against, because ultimately it comes down to what you do. And if you execute, as we saw last week, it really don't matter who's on the other side. You're doing your job and doing what you're supposed to do, then you're going to continue to play like that. And that's something I think, like you mentioned, Kirby has ingrained in these guys. And it's the first thing he mentions after the ball game is we got so much to do to get better. We got to continue to get better every single week. He said they didn't have a really good practice yesterday. So there's always things that they can improve on from week to week, regardless of who's the opponent and who's coming to town.
For Georgia, guys, who benefits most from this type of a ball game? Like the veteran players, the regular starters, or the young guys who hope to get in and get some snaps? Who benefits more out of this?
I think it has to be the younger guys. Obviously, the veterans have been here; they've done it. They played in ball games like this. Some of these young guys, as he talked about earlier, are guys that need these reps. You think about a guy like Malachi Starks, who was in the ball game late against Oregon, and that's simply because they need him to get game reps, regardless of who it is. You need to be against somebody else, seeing something different. So all these young guys or these first-year starters who are getting their chance to play now, the more reps you can get in game in that kind of speed without coaches behind you telling you where to go or what to do is most important. So I think the young guys and those guys who are just starting to get into these key roles are the guys who look at this as a huge challenge, as a game that you look at and say, we have to go out and we have to perform. So I expect those guys to probably play a little bit longer, similar to they did last week, because guess what? After that, you start to get into the SEC schedule. Got South Carolina next week, so you got to be ready to go. You don't have time to sit back and say, all right, we'll give them 5-6 games. That doesn't work around here. You got to be ready to go every single week. So I think expect those young guys and first-year starter guys who haven't played a lot of ball and in this role to have a big, big impact in the ball game.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. If I've got to boil this down just to one position group or one side of the ball, I think this game is really important for the defense to continue to grow, continue to get better, continue to sharpen their skills and get comfortable playing with one another as well. Last week against Oregon, we were very, very vanilla on the defensive side of the ball. Didn't show a lot of different looks. You could tell that we're just getting guys out there in pretty simple schemes so they can go play fast. For this defense, because we are so young, because we are replacing so many guys, really is important that they get as many reps as they can to continue to hone their skills. We know how talented they are, but this game and getting some extra reps, really important.
Last thing for you guys, other than Malachi Starks, who Shock was talking about a few seconds ago, he had the big interception last week. Who else stood out among the new guys on defense for you guys against Oregon? Anybody?
I think Williams stood out on the defensive line. I thought he played very well. Dumas Johnson, I thought played well. I think you can take a look at the defense as a whole. When you give up 3 points, you really played well. So when we talk about there's still a ceiling that we haven't hit yet, it's looking at this defense through a pretty critical lens. And honestly, through a lens of last year's generational type defense that was one of the best to ever play the game. So that there's no question that our eye has been trained here to look at this defense through a different lens. I think everybody played well, but there's still room to grow. But guys that stood out, Michael Williams, thought that played a really solid football game. Dumas Johnson, I thought played a very solid football game. Malachi Starks, I will tell you, I thought he looked just fantastic, and he's got a chance to be a lockdown kind of guy in the Georgia secondary. So a lot to be excited about if you're a Dog fan.
Hey Z, if you're Samford, do you just throw away from 24? Because I know just don't go to his side. Just don't even worry about it.
Just when he's out there, I know the scouting report says he's a freshman and attack him. Don't just go to the other side. There's 24. I'm not throwing to him. I don't care what the coverage is.
Scott, I'll add a couple guys. Obviously, those are key guys I was looking at as well during the ball game. I thought Bullard, and good to see Tyke Smith back out there. Good to see Bullard in that nickel spot, that star position that Kirby talks about a lot. See those guys, saw rotate a few guys. Poole was in that role as well. So you saw 2 or 3 different guys trying to get acclimated to that. And then how about I got Thorson getting a first kick? I was like, he's never going to get the kick today. And then he gets his first attempt. You think he'd be nervous, and he just booms it. So I know he got the defensive side, but it was like a defensive thing because he pushed him all the way back. So good to see the Australian getting his chance in a major college football game.
Shock, have you ever seen a punter get dapped up by every single person on the sideline?
Everybody on the sideline.
Everybody on the team came up and gave him a little bit of love. It was great.
This is how big it was. And after the game, Kirby's going through everything. He's talking, and then he singles out Thorson and says, "Oh, but I got Thorson gets a kick," and everybody goes crazy. So that tells you how much they love him.
Yeah, his ovation was almost as big as the one that Oregon gave their team when they got their first third down conversion. Hey, guys, enjoyed it this week. Y'all have a good week, and we'll see you on Saturday for Georgia and Samford, the home opener at 4 o'clock. We're the radio crew, so join us at noon for our coverage on the Bulldog Sports Network. We hope you have a great week, and go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Oh.